You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 on Instagram and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we have a special guest, and we'll get back to him in just a moment. But first, a message from our partner, CallRail. How many high-value cases did you lose in the past year because your firm couldn't respond fast enough? 81% of law firms say slow response times cost them business, sometimes nearly a quarter of their annual revenue. That's why you need CallRail in 2026. Integrated into your case management system, CallRail helps you capture every call, even after hours, spot the high-value leads, respond faster, and gain the insights you need to get those bigger cases. Join over 3,000 law firms using CallRail to follow up faster, land bigger cases, and drive real growth. You can start your free trial today. Send us a message, and we'll get you set up. Now back to our guest, Michael Saile. How are you?
I'm doing great today. Thanks for having me on, Ben.
Yeah, for sure. So just to set Mike's background, Mike Saile is the founder, managing partner, and trial attorney at Cordisco Saile. It's a rapidly growing personal injury law firm based in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philly. Mike is deeply focused on building and scaling one of the top injury firms in the region while continuing to handle high-stakes catastrophic injury, motor vehicle, and serious injury cases. His path into law was driven by a desire to compete at a high level and stand up for people during some of the most difficult moments of their lives, from trying cases alongside his father to leading a modern, data-driven firm approaching its 10th anniversary. Mike brings a unique blend of courtroom experience, business innovation, and disciplined leadership. Michael, welcome to Lawyer Stories.
That was a pretty good synopsis there. That's where we're at right now. I've been a lawyer for almost 25 years and consistently learning every day, growing, and trying to build an unstoppable firm.
I love it. I love the competitiveness too, as evidenced by, being involved in wrestling and that sort of thing. I think sports sometimes gives attorneys the edge, but let's get into that. So anyway, let's start from the beginning, Mike. Yeah. So, where are you from, and then what drew you into law?
Sure. So I grew up in my younger years in Northeast Philly, and then my parents moved out to the suburbs. And, getting used to a new school, I was kind of a quiet, shy guy at first, and I had some trouble fitting in, kind of got bullied just a little bit. And I always try to think back if that has anything to do with what I do now.
Sure.
That was kind of like late elementary school, and then got into middle school. And then, like I said, I got into some wrestling that kind of really boosted my confidence and, just that competitive, nature of going in there, working hard every day, going to battle. You're in the arena, just like in trial, you're going to fight. Nobody's there to save you. And whether you win or you lose, it's based on preparation and who you are, what your guts are, but what your skill level is. And if you lose, you learn from it. And that's kind of what we do every day as a trial lawyer. So.
What do you think the competitive mindset comes from? How do you think it comes from wrestling, especially? I mean, wrestling's so intense. There's other sports obviously, but wrestling, I feel like you need a lot of confidence. It's an individual type of thing, maybe.
Yeah, I started late. I have 3 boys that wrestle, and they started at 4 years old and 6 years old and 6 years old. I have 3, and I live my wrestling background every day. It comes from a fierceness, like you said, a competitiveness. Being the best you can, learning every day, working hard, and eventually working hard and getting better. But it's not always about winning. It is for our clients, of course, but I've learned how to lose in wrestling, and that's one of the more important things and lessons that you learn from wrestling is how to lose and then how to come back, regroup, and get better. And it's that process of winning and then losing and then winning and working harder and becoming mentally strong so that you're back and stronger than ever.
Yeah, I mean, I have a little guy too. He's 7. What do you tell like somebody who's just lost like a game or something, like say lose a basketball game or baseball? Like what do you tell them to get them sort of back to where they need to be?
Well, I mean, number one, I'm not disappointed as a parent unless if they gave their full effort. If they didn't, we could tell on the mat if they're giving their full effort or not, or if they're quitting, or they're getting too emotional, or they're just giving up. So that I have a problem if they're not giving their full effort, because we put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of travel, a lot of money into giving them the best training that they can. So
Right.
beyond that, we know that if you gave your full effort, you did the best you can. There's always going to be somebody who beats you in wrestling or any other sport. There's always somebody better than you, but you're really in competition with yourself. How
Okay.
can I get better every day? It's not necessarily, beating somebody else. Now it is in the courtroom, but becoming a better person, becoming a better lawyer, becoming a better competitor, to get better every day, you have to be in competition with yourself. There's nobody else in the business world that's going to get you better unless you are trying to get yourself better every day.
Love it. So Mike, did you have a moment when you knew you wanted to go to law school, or was it your dad? Like who,
Well,
besides like what? I mean, it doesn't matter if you didn't have this big, like,
No, well, it wasn't a moment. It was more like I was an accounting major. I know I didn't want to be an accountant.
Okay.
When I graduated, I was probably, not middle of the road, but I was probably a B student in college, and I wasn't getting the super high paying jobs, but I knew coming out as an accountant, I was going to make about 40 grand a year. And I'm like, that doesn't sound that attractive to me anyway.
Right.
I have a father and 2 uncles that were lawyers, and that was going to be a natural path anyway. So decided to take the LSAT, got into law school early, and then something shifted in law school where I knew in law school that you had to actually like dedicate yourself, meaning you have to read every night. You have to study. You have to put your best effort in. It's not like college party days where you just try to get by as best as you can. There's no cheating. There's no getting by. You have to put the time in and own it in law school.
Right.
And that's what I did. And I finally became focused, at least as a real student in law school, and made Dean's List every time. But
Really?
I knew that it was like, okay, well, if I put the time in and the effort, and I have some natural ability as a competitor, an arguer, or whatever you want to say it, I'll be fine. And I did, and I graduated, with honors. And I knew as a young lawyer, I wanted to get my feet wet in the courtroom,
Right.
right? Because I have a father who's an estate planning lawyer that they never go to court, and if they have to go to court, they're just not comfortable, and then you become afraid to go to court, nervous, and it's not a place you want to be. So. They teach that in law school, I believe now. It's like get your feet in the courtroom when you're younger, when you're earlier in your career, get that experience. And you can do that being the district attorney, a public defender, something like that.
And when was it in law school when, you built a strong foundation as a litigator, wider, like, when was it at law school when you were like, hey, like, this is kind of similar to being a competitive athlete? Like, did you start thinking about that? Like, I kind of like this, my dad's over there doing estate planning, but I think I want to like go the courtroom route.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there was a switch that turned on like that, but I've learned to come to realize that it's very similar. Like going to the courtroom and going to battle is similar to going out on the mat wrestling, right? You're handling your case, and you need to be prepared, right? And you're out there making the arguments, and you're fighting for someone.
Yeah.
In a wrestling match, you're fighting for yourself, but there it's one-on-one. You're in the arena. I mean, you're training, you're practicing, you're preparing, and it's like it's a winner and a loser in the courtroom, and it's very similar to sports or on the wrestling mat. You're either winning or you're losing. So if you have that competitive edge in your head or whatever that you want to do your best, on our side, on the plaintiff side, we're not billing per hour. We get to spend as much time on a case as we want. We get to spend as much time to prepare as we want. So it's really up to us how we want to show our best face in court. So I guess it's that competitiveness that, it's putting everything on the line. Was it a little bit like gambling? Maybe, but we're doing our best. And I tell clients that when they sign up, how are we going to do? What are they? All I can promise you is I'm going to do my best. I'm going to give you my full effort if I take your case or my firm takes your case. And that's all I can promise you. I don't know where the cards are going to fall in the beginning of the case. And we don't know when we go to a jury trial. It's like, You know, these are 12 strangers that are looking at us with all different backgrounds, and you never know how the cards are going to crumble, but you're going to do your best, and that's all you can really promise as a lawyer. If you promise more than that, you're lying, and that's unethical.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to the advice that you would hear, giving your son or my son, like, just do your best. Did you actually do your best out there? Like, that sort of thing. Did you
give full effort in life? If you're going to do something, I always tell my boys, if you're going to do something, I don't care if it's cutting the lawn or if it's another sport or if it's school, do it right. I mean, do it the best you possibly can, because that's your life and eventually becomes your reputation that people can rely on you and trust you. And that builds into your business, and that will help grow your business because you have, a good reputation. And there's a name for that. I can't think of it right now, but there's a name, trustworthiness, all that stuff, and honor, like,
totally. Yeah, I get it. So why personal injury? What was it that really kind of lit a flame? I know you worked with your dad. I want to hear what that was.
So coming out of law school, I wanted to get that trial experience, right? And I applied for the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, and at that year, way back in 2002 or so, I think there was over 1,000 applicants. There was, I think they hired 15, and 10 of them were from their summer clerkship program, which was one of my roommates. So I didn't get that job, let's say, right? So I applied to other jobs. I fell into an opportunity where I could learn. It was actually at a firm in southern New Jersey, where I lived in South Philly and would travel 45 minutes each way. But I actually learned how to run a case, how to manage a case, how to value a case, and I actually got in the courtroom in the first year that I was there doing what is a profitable business. Personal injury, obviously, lawyers are there. You see all the advertisement, the billboards. We have good overhead. We may have good profits. So I was learning a skill set, being in the courtroom, working up a case, all those things in the first 2 years, almost like working for the government or an internship or something like that. And I got that skill set that you can only learn by doing. And I got that working for somebody else. And then after 2 years, I decided to leave that firm and eventually joined up with my father and kind of built my practice with his practice side by side.
So were you building a personal injury practice while he was doing estate planning?
Yeah. I mean, when you first start, you don't have many cases, right? So when I first started with him, I only had a couple cases, and I was working in New Jersey before, and this was more of a PA practice. So yeah. And then I learned estate law too, because you don't have a choice. Like, you got to make money, right? So I learned estate law. I worked with him, helped him. I grew my personal injury practice. I also had a light criminal practice. But I guess maybe around 2006, about 2 years about there and there, I really got into legal marketing and business development. And that's been a passion of mine. I'm an entrepreneur at heart. As a lawyer, I'm a lawyer at my craft, but I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And I really got into the marketing and business development. And I've been going to conferences, seminars, mastermind groups, all that different stuff through the last many years back to that date. But now, at my practice now, I am part trial lawyer, but mostly managing partner, CEO of the firm, trying to grow the firm. But I do handle some of the more substantial cases at the firm.
How many attorneys do you guys have?
We have 8 attorneys total.
Wow. Okay. So tell us when you decided to launch Cordisco and Saile.
All right. So,
not really. I'm sorry, Mike. Not really when, but like, when did you know it was time to kind of launch Cordisco and Saile?
So, all right. So I was with my dad for about 10 years.
Yep.
And I just happened to meet John Cordisco, and we had lunch, and he was at another big firm. So he had his own firm with another partner who's actually at our firm now. And they were in practice for about 18 years. They moved to a bigger firm and kind of incorporated their practice into a bigger firm. And then we met, and, I had all these entrepreneurial ideas. I was into marketing, shooting my own videos back in like 2012, like in my basement with a green screen, like the grassroots marketing, because I didn't have a budget. Like, I worked with an estate planner who worked by the hour, and a personal injury budget was like small potatoes, right? So I had to work with grassroots marketing, inexpensive marketing. And, I met John and gave him all my ideas and what I was doing. And he was kind of fascinated by that. And he was wondering why he's at a big firm now when he actually was locally famous. He was the Democratic Party chairman in our county for like 25 years. So, John was the kind of guy where after lunch, we'd go walk to a bank and 12 people would come up to him and shake his hand.
Right.
So I looked at him as somebody who's locally famous, who was a good lawyer, who had a great reputation, that if I could take my marketing skills to somebody locally famous and we had some capital, we can really make a difference. And that's what we did. And here we are 10 years later.
Wow, that's pretty smart. That is the entrepreneur in you right there.
Yeah.
So John, like that's a good idea. So
and we started with maybe 50 cases each when we first started. No real budget. We had to kind of work through the first couple of years. It was tough. And then we hit COVID in the middle. But you know, in the last 3 to 4 years, we've really been taking off. We've grown about 300% in the last 2 years.
Wow.
Case-wise, yeah. And attorney-wise, too. We just hired 3 new attorneys in January this year.
Congratulations. That's amazing. So when you each had the 50 cases, like what were you taking at the beginning? Was it car crashes?
Yeah, I mean, most of, unless you're super specific, like a truck accident attorney or med mal attorney, most, if not 95% of personal injury firms are just the run of the mill, not to say that in a negative way, but
no.
we're probably 90% accidents, right? Car accidents, truck accidents. And then there's the falls and the premises cases where people fall and get hurt, or there's a fight, or some kind of other negligence happens. But you know, they're all different sizes, shapes. You know,
sure.
You know, different parts and different things. So yeah,
totally. So what was the vision when you? I mean, you told me kind of like the structure, like when the reason why it worked, like with John. I love that he was like locally famous and you had the marketing skills. Like, what was your vision when you came together? You're like, okay, like this is what I think we should do.
You know, so, I mean, I looked at it like when we first start a firm, whether it's us or anybody else, you're like paddling up a river, like against the current, doing the best you can just to survive. You have a skeleton crew. You're doing everything yourselves for the most part. And you're just trying to grow and build new cases. And hopefully that phone keeps ringing. You know, you get a little bit of money and you try to invest it in some type of marketing that's going to bring you back. You know, you need a website, things like that. But eventually it starts to grow and grow and grow and grow. And then we came to a point where it was like, okay, now I need to set the vision of the firm, right? We need to set some core values. We need to set a mission statement. And what we decided was that, like, John and I we worked together on a few significant cases and got some good results. And we knew that when we worked together and do things our way, we did very well. And we wanted to kind of replicate that because we knew that we were helping real people. And the fact that we were helping real people, we were changing lives. And not only felt good for us, we helped a lot of people. So we decided to create, you know, our mission statement is to help pretty much in a toned down way, is to help as many people as we can, you know, that are injured, and do it effective and zealously and all that kind of stuff. So the more people we can help, the more difference we can make. You know, you could stay small as a firm and only handle a certain amount of cases and be fine as a lawyer, or you can help as many people as you can. Sure. You know, obviously it's financially rewarding to have a bigger firm and to have more clients, but at the same time, we want to keep that service and that skill level very tight so that, you know, we are still making a difference. And that's part of what we do here.
Yeah, no, I think that's so smart. So at what point did you realize the firm, you were like scaling it, that it was scaling into something significant? Like when did you realize like that was?
Well, I mean, it was a point where a few years ago, I was handling the multi-million-dollar cases and John was kind of overseeing me and working with me on those, right? And we joined a coaching group and, you know, John and I were always kind of going in different directions. He was still involved in politics a little bit. I was running the firm, handling the cases. He was overseeing a lot of the cases, handling some cases. And we sat down with a coach and they're like, okay, well, you know, what are your guys' plans? What are you going to do? You know, and they convinced us really to hire like an operations person, like an operations manager, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea is that it would free me up to handle more litigation cases. Right. And that was the original idea because I wore all the hats, right? I was in charge of marketing, finance, business development, employees, HR. You know, as a founder, you wear all the hats until you can figure out how not to. And you know, I had friends that tell me, "Oh, you got to stop working on all the cases. You got to do all this." So basically, what happened was we hired an operations manager who was fine and good. But what happened was all those projects that I couldn't get to for the last 10 years, he was helping me do, you know, so eventually we started to turn the corner and we started better staff and we started to create KPIs for our staff and just different tracking mechanisms and quarterly improvements with quarterly meetings and goals. And, it's almost like an EOS structure where you just try to get better every quarter. And then eventually, we always had a good reputation. We did some local TV in Bucks County at least, and things started snowballing and we got busier and busier. And last year we had our best year yet.
It's amazing. Congrats. So Mike, what would you say it takes to build a modern injury law firm?
Yeah, well, I mean, at first, like, somebody has to found it, right? So John and I were the founders. And, you have to either hire somebody to operate it. So there's very good trial lawyers in our country, obviously. It's the ones that go around the country trying cases, that's all they do, right? You can't be, I'm fully convinced at this point, and people told me that for years, and some people like to argue, you can't be the trial lawyer and run the whole firm, right? It's one or the other. Luckily, I'm the boss, so I get to choose what cases I want to work on. So my caseload is very small. I get to choose who I want to work with and supervise the other attorneys. But I'm also running the firm. So you have to have somebody that's main goal is to grow and run the firm. Whether you hire that person that is not a lawyer to do that, that's one option. I always had to drive to grow the firm. I have this marketing and business development expertise that I've learned and honed over the last 20 years. And I'm very interested, and that's what moves me, is signing up new cases and getting new clients and that kind of stuff. So I'm obsessed with that. And I think to grow a firm, you have to have somebody who's obsessed with growth. And have a visionary and a leader. And that's what I've become here. As more of a visionary and managing partner at this point. And, I still try cases and I still have some substantial cases, but I like that because that's a challenge too. So I get the best of both worlds where I'm at.
I love that. So before we talked a little bit about metrics, like you meant quarterly with employees, maybe. So you talk about building with data and metrics. What should law firm owners be tracking?
Oh, well, that's a loaded question. Right? So, they say if something gets tracked, it gets better, right? It gets improved. If something gets measured, it gets improved. So, whether it's something in marketing, you need to know how you're spending your money. Like, we go through this quarterly. What sources of marketing, where the cases come from, is paying off. Like, how many cases are we signing from this source? What are the values? What kind of case values are we getting from them? That all gets measured on a marketing perspective. Then you have intake, right? Or like to call sales. It's the people answering the phones. We pay so much money to get leads into the door. You have to measure your intake, or I like to call it sales because it really is sales.
Yes, totally.
We're trying to sell them. So we have leads and we have wanted leads. And we want to try to sign over 90% of our wanted leads. So you got to measure that. You got to measure, you could dial it down to first phone call signups. But obviously you're measuring your signups, you're measuring your leads, and then you got to measure, hey, where are those cases going? So then you have a pre-lit department. What do you have? Historically, we had a firm where our attorneys handled everything from beginning to end. I changed that this year. I realized that 60% of our cases are settling in pre-lit, and half of them are settling for policy limits. So why am I having my trial lawyers who are good at litigation handling cases that settle for policy limits and checking demand letters and stuff when they could be doing much more valuable things? So now we created a pre-lit department and everything's measured there. And we have pre-lit attorneys and we have pre-lit paralegals and we have international employees. All everything they're doing is being measured. They have key performance indicators. We call them KPIs. They're measured monthly on their KPIs and pre-lit. And then that eventually flows into lit and then closing department.
Right. Interesting.
Closing department.
Love it.
Yeah. So we're measuring the amount of days.
Like a whole map of something, Mike. Like
there is. There's a lot to it, and it's like it's like making homemade wine, right? I make homemade wine. My wife's family is from southern Italy, so all of her uncles and father used to make homemade wine. I took over father's operation, I don't know, 15 years ago, and you can make wine by putting grape juice in an urn. That's what they did back in Greece or before, right? They had these urns full, and you do nothing, right? Or you could be so sophisticated, measure everything, measure the sugar content, the all the different factors. Add wood, or do not add wood. Add yeast, add new yeast. Like there's so much. And that's what wineries do to keep it consistent and keep a good product. So the law is kind of like that, where you can let it go and it'll grow. If you do good work, it'll grow maybe 10% a year. That's kind of what happens. Yep. Or you can intentionally do things that are going to set you apart and make you a better firm, and hire middle management in the middle to help manage those processes. So you got to create processes SOP, standard operating procedures for everything you do in the firm. And we're still working on that. Yep. And then you have to have somebody monitor them. And then right now we're doing quarterly reviews on every employee from the first quarter, looking at whether they hit their KPIs or not. And if they do hit their KPIs,
stand for, Mike? Sorry.
What's that?
What does that stand for again? KPI.
KPI. It's key performance indicator. So it's certain things that we want our staff to do. We're telling our staff exactly what, as from management, what we want them to do in their job. For example, we like them to get reviews each month. We like them to call our clients every 30 days. We like them to meet certain deadlines, like get a demand letter out in a certain amount of time. You know, certain things like that, they're measured on. Each one of them are measured on them. And then if they hit them all, they get a bonus. If they go above and beyond that, they get a bonus. We try to do that quarterly to keep them hungry.
So is that like you have to settle for this amount or you have to get this amount? So it's not...
No, it's not settling. It's just...
Or go to give a verdict or something.
This is more for the paralegals, really.
Okay. All right.
You know, we're going to have attorney ones soon, but the paralegals is more like moving those cases the way we want them to.
That makes sense. Okay.
Keeping client contact once every 30 days. You know, there's certain things that we can track with our case management system that we can hold them accountable for.
Yeah, I mean, of course, because attorneys would get attorney fees if you had a big judgment.
Hi, I'm John Morgan. I didn't wake up one day with the largest injury firm in America. I started with one office and a choice: grow or die. I took calculated risk, built my team, and made lots of mistakes along the way, but also built systems and procedures to avoid those mistakes in the future. I'm doing one seminar, one time, to show you how I did it.
Join me at the Win in Vegas on June 9th. Use code STORIES20.
Say a case comes in, it gets to like intake, and then it gets to the pre-lit, and then they look at it and you get policy limits, or, you know, they're going to settle for maybe 3/4 of the policy limits just based on the fact of the case or whatnot.
Yeah.
Do you have to does the managing partner, and I guess this maybe everybody does different, but does the managing partner look at that to make sure, you know, well, I think we should take this to trial. We can get 5 times more, or like, how do they, or do your staff have the green light to go ahead and settle something?
So
take it to trial.
Yeah. So we have like groups in pre-lit, you know, we call them pods in the law, right? An attorney, 2 in-house paralegals, and an international person. That's called a pod, or that we kind of refer to. They're all, you know, running their own cases, right? And our rules now are, you have permission to settle for policy limits. If it's anything under policy limits, you have to come to our settlement, our case evaluation committee, and run it by myself and a couple of the other more senior litigation attorneys, so we can give you permission to settle the case for less than policy limits. That's how we're doing it now.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. So would somebody take a case? So are there cases that are like obviously like not going to get the policy limits?
Yeah, there are, but they have that attorney, that pre-lit attorney, has to justify that and let us more senior people, the supervisors, kind of agree with them. Okay, well, this is the issue. Now, our client is the one who makes the final decision.
Right.
So, hey, if they need money quick, or they don't want to litigate, or something else, that all goes into the equation. But we're now, for us to keep good supervision over it, it's policy limits, or come to the committee and present your case, so that we can give you permission to negotiate for something less.
Okay.
Because in reality is we want to help them learn as they grow and get better at pre-lit attorneys. But at the same time, you know, we could tell our clients anything and kind of justify it. We want to make sure that our attorneys are number one, fighting for as much as they can, but number 2, understand the process, but also are being ethical and telling our clients, yeah, this is right or this is wrong. So we have to supervise it some way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you having that extra like layer of review, I think is actually pretty, that really, I think, is helpful to clients too, to know that it's being, you know, reviewed by 2 kind of levels. But what if it goes the other way? Like the client, you think you get policy limits, but you also think you can get X amount of dollars at trial.
Well, it depends, of course, on whether we can ever get money, right? So typically, if it's just against individual people, most people are not individually wealthy where you can get more money out of. So all those considerations have to go into a settlement recommendation or not. But the whole goal behind this is that if we want to show the insurance companies that we're a litigation firm, and that's what we are, and we're trying to even make better, is if you're not going to give us and our clients a fair offer, that we feel is fair, we're going to throw it right into litigation, and we're going to fight you to trial if it has to be that way. And
Right.
our firm's going to get a better and better reputation with the insurance companies that if they don't make fair offers, we're going to litigate. So let's make the fair offers anyway, right in the beginning part, because we're a no joke firm. You're either going to pay what we think is fair, or we're going to litigate and let somebody else decide, let the jury decide or the court decide. And with today's technology, insurance companies have always been tracking attorneys and law firms, but now with AI, they're probably tracking every demand we make in response to their offer and how long things take.
Right.
They're dialing in that number on each attorney and each law firm so far that if you're not operating a firm this way, I think you're going to do a disservice to your client. You're not going to get as many fair offers pre-litigation, and then even in litigation, they know you're going to fold. So that's the way to set up a modern firm, the way I see it.
Love it. So who's coming to Cordisco and Saile now for cases? Like what injured clients, like who are the people who need the legal help that are coming to your firm?
Yeah, so most of our cases, 80% plus are in the state of Pennsylvania, the eastern half. We do take cases in New Jersey, kind of reserve them for more catastrophic cases. We have a lot of good partners in New Jersey that we work with. We prefer to stay in Pennsylvania as much as we can, but there's times we go to New Jersey, and we could be expanding that in the future. But they're usually people that 90% of them are in an auto accident. Some of them are a lot of slip and falls, fall on ice, or in a facility, or we're negotiating a case now in a restaurant where they just mopped it and they didn't put anything out, and the guy had 5 surgeries on his back because he slipped and fell. We have bar fight cases, we have dram shop cases where there's an accident when somebody's been overserved alcohol and they're intoxicated, and there's an action against the bar. There's a bunch of different cases, but most of them involve some kind of machine, an automobile, something like that. And that's the majority of most personal injury practices.
Got it. So tell us a little bit about AI. How do you feel it's impacting law firms? I know we talked about it a little bit, but from operations to marketing, I know that you talked about the insurance company side of it. They're sort of looking at what these firms are doing, but what about operations and marketing and maybe reviewing documents like that?
Yeah. So, I could tell you last January 2025, AI was just an idea that we had. Come spring last year, at least in the legal industry, and at all they generally go to conferences we go to, their vendors, there are vendors, we work with them, we'll call them partners maybe. Yeah. AI in the legal world with vendors, especially catering to plaintiffs' personal injury lawyers, has exploded, right? And why? Because we don't work by the hour. So the more efficient we are, the better we are. The more cases we can handle, the more accurate we can be. If you're billing by the hour as a defense attorney or something else, you got to bill that time. AI is going to cut down that time, right? May make you a bit. Now, there's ethical issues with that, but we're on a contingent basis. So, if we don't recover, we don't get a dime. So the more efficient we can be, the better. Right. So this is a no-brainer. If you're a personal injury law firm today and you're not starting, if not working in AI to all of your systems, you're going to be left behind.
Right.
And I tell that to my staff. I had a half-year meeting last year, and I promised them all that your job, as you all sit here today, your job's not going to be threatened by AI, meaning I'm not going to get rid of you because we have AI. But if you don't learn how to adopt and use AI in your job, you're going to be replaced by somebody who can and does, right? So to answer your question, we use it in intake. We use it to screen calls. We use it to help our sales team get better. We use it to help grade calls. We use it to make a transcript and make notes that goes into our case management system. We use it to create documents in pre-litigation. We use it to create demand letters within minutes, looking at the entire file. We use it in all parts of litigation. It has been, and we partnered with an AI firm that kind of works with us, with personal injury firms, that's really beginning to end. And our staff loves it. They're using it for so many things. They're becoming so much more efficient and more accurate even. So it's been we've had it for over 6 months now. Okay. And the staff is using it. They're adopting it. Everybody loves it. And I think it's only going to get better and better.
Just make sure you check those case citations, right?
Yeah, we try not to use it for legal research in that regard, but it's a good start. And, totally. A paid version of ChatGPT, if you check the cases, it's getting better and better.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think there's a lot of, I mean, we've had some on the show, like a lot of, and we partnered too. I mean, we've had sponsors at our events, like who are tech companies, and there's a lot of great things out there for law firms now. Where do you see some of the firms making mistakes when adopting the new technology?
Well, in a law firm, there always has to be human in the loop, right? Sure. Somebody has to check it. I tell my staff, it's almost like you all have your own paralegals that never get tired, that will work overnight if you need them to, that they're going to draft you your first draft of a letter, of a document, of a demand package, of a complaint in the litigation process. That is just getting you your first draft. So that just saved you hours upon drafting. Now, I expect you as a paralegal, whether it's pre-lit or it's litigation, to check and read through that to make sure it's factually accurate. Make sure that nothing is being put in there that we don't know that's in the case, right? Because eventually when you get into litigation, you're submitting stuff to the court, and that has to be 100% accurate. So it gets more high stakes when you get into litigation. But even in pre-lit, if we're doing a demand letter, I read them all, obviously, and I ask questions like, is this true? Is that true? Because I expect them to run through that themselves to make sure everything's accurate before it gets to me to check. So the biggest thing is just really relying on the technology and not checking it. You just have to look at, this is the first draft. It's like having your own paralegal, like I said. They're the ones that are going to create it for you. You have to make sure it is factually accurate. Even if you think your system's great, you're responsible, we're responsible. And especially when it gets into litigation, filing something with the court that's not accurate. Lawyers across Pennsylvania and all over are getting sanctioned. Yeah, and it's not going to be a pretty thing if it continues to happen. Yeah,
no, agree. You have talked about shifting from outcomes to a client experience. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean?
So, I mean, look, every one of our clients is going through something different, right? They're all in a bad situation that they never planned to be in. Some of them are financially destitute. Some of them are in daily pain. Some of them are frustrated. Some of them are angry. Some of them are grieving a loss of a person. So, we have to realize that as professionals, and we have to meet them as best as we can with as much empathy as possible where they're at in that journey. So, there's clients all different. They're hot. Sometimes they're upset. Like, we have to learn to adapt to be with them. But the goal is to, number one, treat them as best as we can, bring them through this process. We're attorneys and counselors at law. We have to bring them through physically, mentally. Like, they have to be on board for us, because if they don't treat and try to get better and go to the proper medical testing and treatment, and they just quit because they're frustrated, we don't have a case, because the medical evidence is what we present in court. That's what's going to get value in the case. So it's almost, we have to bring them through the process, whether they like it or not. We have to encourage them. But, customer services, we're all in the service industry. We're not selling widgets. Yeah. We're not selling products. We're selling a service. So how do you distinguish yourself? Today, we're in the world of what? We have Grubhub. We have, all the apps, Starbucks. I order my Starbucks, and within 7 minutes, it tells me that it's being made. It's there. When I order lunch from Grubhub or Uber Eats, it tells me when the driver's there, when it's picking up, when it's going to be there, when it's being dropped off. People expect that kind of service today. Right. Totally. And lawyers are traditionally bad at service. They're traditionally bad at communications. I was a hearing committee member for the Pennsylvania Disciplinary Board. Oh, wow. That heard, I was a judge or an arbitrator, almost like a 3-panel judge panel that first heard complaints that were filed by the Office of Disciplinary Counsel. And the number one complaint we got, and my partner John was a vice chairman of the disciplinary board, is lawyers don't get back to me. Yeah. Communications.
Funny you say that. I just did a CLE with one of our legal tech brands, Case Status, about the number one bar complaint, communication. We did an hour CLE credit, like literally March 6th. So yeah, you sound like just what I was studying.
And we work with them too. And along with Colrell, like you had your sponsor, Colrell, we work with Case Status, and yes, that helps us communicate out to the clients. Yep. And the goals of those programs are to give more outbound communication, so clients don't need continual calling in and updates. They're actually updated along the way, which makes them a happier client. But communication's key, and letting them understand what we're doing, but why we're doing it is where the lawyer comes in, because we get a lot of calls that clients are like, I don't understand why you're doing this or why you're sending me here. They just need that extra TLC sometimes to help them understand why they're doing it, because they're putting out all this time and effort to go to therapy appointments, specialist appointments, and it takes a lot of time. I know when I have to go to the doctor, it's most of our clients are working people. They have to take time away from work. It's constant. If it's therapy, it's 3 days a week. That's a huge commitment. And we have to kind of bring them through the process and say, look, if you're really injured, you should get this treatment anyway, because it's going to help you. But even beyond that, we need to treat to have a case, because it's a direct evidence that you're injured. So it's kind of keeping them in the loop, keeping them updated, keeping them informed, which keeps them happy. They feel confidence in you, and they feel you're doing the right job, and they have, we have their backs at all times.
And how, I think you just answered my next question, which was about how do you ensure your clients feel supported, but beyond the legal results. So, and if you're using a system like Case Status, I mean, obviously, Colorado, these are very reputable systems. If somebody calls the firm, I mean, do you have the attorney maybe that's part of eventually that's part of their metrics that they call them back within, a certain amount of time or something like that?
Yeah. So, I mean, existing clients, we expect our our attorneys to call back within the day, if not the half day.
Sure.
I actually, when I monitor the messages coming in the firm, I get upset when clients are calling for an update on their case, because I want to know why that client's not fully informed ahead of time.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the case in the case management system. When was the last contact? We keep track of all of our calls, because like I said, the paralegals and the attorneys are getting tracked on how often they call the clients. So I'm looking back to see what that is. Now, some clients are very needy. They need to be called more often. Some aren't. So, but when I get that message come in through our call answering service, like after hours or overflow, and it says so-and-so's calling to get an update on her case, I'm like, what's going on here? Why aren't they fully updated? That's not up to my standard. That's not up to our standards. It could be a problem.
Yeah, no, I like that. That was like a reaction right off the bat. You could tell you're passionate about this, man. Like, you got a lot of great information here. Definitely like you love the operations aspect of it. Like, that was a really cool breakdown of how your firm operates. I love that. So regarding trial, like you said, the courtroom is about preparation and accountability. So just expand on that a little bit.
Well, I mean, we always say, my partner John and I, that we only get one chance to do this.
Yes.
There's no redos. There's no, timeouts. Whether you're in litigation trying to effectuate a settlement, or you're at arbitration or mediation, or you're at trial, you have to get to know your client's story. You got to get to know your client. You got to like your client, because if you don't, the person judging the case is going to feel it. I mean,
interesting.
When we go to trial, we spend a lot of time with our clients, not in our office, like not in sanitized Cordisco and Saile modern office. We are going to their home. We are having lunch with them. We are looking at their photos and their picture frames and asking questions. We're getting to know their family that's in the house, their animals, their pets, their husband or spouse, and how they're reacting, because they're living with the injury and the resulting, trauma through the whole thing too. So we have to feel it in our hearts, because you can't effectively communicate if you don't feel it. It's going to come off fake. It's going to come off scripted. And if you don't feel your client's loss, you can't tell their story in court. So that's like kind of one of the most important things trial lawyers are taught to do early, is spend the time with your clients. If you're going to go that whole route, make sure you do that, or don't take the case.
Right. No, that makes so much sense. How do you personally prepare for a high stakes case?
Well, I mean, it starts pre-litigation, right? You have to figure out where this case is going to go. Like, there's certain cases we know, and thankfully I get to choose the cases, so I'm usually working on the bigger ones. I know most cases, if there are a very serious case, they're either going to settle for policy limits, which, if it's not a corporate defendant or a big insurance policy, it'll probably settle, right? And you're not going to get that much, which is unfortunate for the family, right? It might be a quick and easier settlement, but it's unfortunate for the family. But most of my cases are about corporations, multinational corporations, big towers of insurance. We know those cases are not going to settle early and quick and easy. And we don't want them to, because we want to push the other side as far as we can so that they're actually afraid to go to trial with us because they know that we may go to trial and get 10 times more what they're thinking on the case.
Right.
And if we're at a good venue like Philadelphia, I mean, there are some incredible verdicts that come out of Philadelphia. Yeah. And, it's basically, it's almost like playing chess along the way. You have to set it up pre-litigation to get what you need, and then you flip it over in the litigation. And then the depositions, it's so important to prepare for depositions. And I agree with the theory. You win a lot of cases in depositions. So my typical deposition is 2 to 4 hours. I'm drilling the opponent, this driver or this truck company or corporate representative. They're wiped out when they're done with me. And I video record it all like we are here so I can play it in the trial if they're inconsistent with what they say. If they act like a jerk, I get that all on video. And guess what? That's going right into the court. So, it's a matter of, working hard, but doing the right things, hiring the right experts. We want the best experts. We want the ones that have been tested in litigation that are likable, just like our clients need to be likable. You might be deserving, but you're not likable, and that's going to compromise the verdict you're going to get. So there's a ton of factors. We could
so many factors. That's unbelievable how many factors there are.
And it always is changing too. It's like, we're studying humans here, human thought process, the way we learn through the brain. We do a lot of brain injuries here, which is double affects that. But the way we remember things, if you're at a long trial, you have to sequence things in different ways and learn how the brain remembers things so that you can bring it up later in closing argument. And people are learning different ways. People have biases and different biases and hidden biases, and you have to learn how to treat different generations, Generation X versus Z versus Y versus the boomers. Like, there's different ways to talk to those people, but then if you have multiple people on your panel, you have to kind of mix your methodology. There's so much that goes into it. It's so intellectually challenging, and that's kind of why I still do trial law, because I like the challenge of it.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to wrestling, which is competitiveness and fighting.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just competitiveness and fighting. It's the fighting element that keeps you going as a person. When you can change, we have the unique ability in our field to change people's lives for the better in the future. Not many other lawyers can say that.
Yeah.
And we get so many hugs and thank yous. And then when you go to trial with somebody, they're your fan forever. Even if we lose, they know we fought for them and we all put it on the line and we did our best. And you can see, we'll follow our Facebook page. We have recurring people that currently comment on all of our stuff that love us. And they never let that go because we gave them that feeling of hope that somebody was fighting for them, whether we won a lot of money or we didn't. It's just that people want to know somebody's fighting for them and giving them their day in court. And that's what means a lot more to people than the money sometimes.
That's awesome. And I was going to go right back to the wrestling. Like, you have that wrestling background. So how has that shaped your leadership and your mindset? I mean, you just talked about, being a competitor. So tell us a little bit about that.
I think, like you said, it's mindset, right? It's every day. Like, if you want to be the best of your craft, you need to learn every single day, right? So my typical day, I like to take the kids to the bus, right? Spend time with the kids in the morning. Very little time, but at least I get to see them off to school. I get to choose that because I build my firm around myself to some degree, so I get to choose that. Then I like to go to the gym and work out, right? While I'm working out, I'm usually listening to a podcast. And the podcast is either about business development, marketing, or trial law. It's one or the other, depending on what I feel like that day or what's new or what drops that week, right? So then I go into the office now through a good workout. My head's clear. I'm thinking about either trial work or business development, and I'm focused, and I'm constantly, I'm trying to get better every day. Yeah. And that's what wrestling kind of teaches you. You're getting better. I don't have any partners here that I'm fighting with to get up the higher on the ranks. I'm trying to beat myself every day to get better, to learn more every day, because in this practice, it's a constant learning process, whether it's the medicine, whether it's, like I said, how people think, how people remember. It's just dealing with people, and that's always going to change. That's what makes this job a lot of fun, because it's always changing, and I like change as an entrepreneur. So a lot of people are afraid of change, but change is always good. There's opportunity in change, but there's always opportunity to get better. And you're only as good as your next trial. Your last trial doesn't matter because you don't know what's going to be. Yeah. So, it's constantly trying to get better, and that's what wrestling kind of taught me at a younger age, which I kind of relive now on a daily basis. And that's why I'm so into wrestling at this point with my kids, because I think it's the best thing. One-on-one, no excuses. If you lose, that's on you. There's nobody to blame. There's no quarterback. There's no pitcher. Like, there's nobody to blame except for yourself, whether you're not skilled enough or you didn't put the time in or you're just a little bit lazy and not giving your full effort. That's on you, and you need to live with that.
Yeah,
So
it's intense. So what is when the moment comes, it's on you, mean in your world?
when the moment comes, it's on you. Well, there's nobody I mean, look, it depends where you're at. Like, if you're in business, you got to make an important decision, right? There's nobody that's going to come in and save you, right? Having partners, when you own a business, if you make some poor decisions, you're on the line. Your butt's on the line. You can have a year where you don't make $1. That's just part of being an entrepreneur.
Yep.
But being a trial lawyer, we're constantly making strategic decisions. Do we make every decision perfect every time? Do we play Monday morning quarterback if we don't get the decision we like? Yes. But you have to make decisions, and good decisions, strategic decisions along the way that you have to live with, whether that they're good or not. So there's nobody behind you to save you. Whether you're running a business or you're in a trial, you're just doing your best. And, you keep moving forward one step at a time every day. As long as you might get set back a little bit for whatever this or that, but as long as you keep one step at a time every day, keep that moving forward, get better every day. And that's one of the mantras we have here, is to constantly get better.
Love it. So for someone building a firm or a career right now, what's the one principle they need to focus on?
I think the one principle would be to constantly grow and get better, constantly learn, constantly hone your craft, expose yourself. Your thought process is where you follow. Your thoughts are going to control you. So you have to control what's going in your head. Meaning, like, okay, if you want to, after work, if you want to do some other kind of activity, spend your time doing that. You're not going to be focused on just being a good lawyer, for example. What you listen to and what you hear and what you learn and what you read is going to be your mindset. And the more you follow that, the better you're going to get at what you want to be. So if you want to be the best chess player, you should probably be reading books and listen to podcasts about chess. If you want to be the best lawyer, you got to surround yourself with constant learning and the mindset that I'm going to be a better lawyer, and I'm immersing myself. And we have such good technology now with podcasts, with YouTube. You can basically learn anything. You can read any book. It's even in 20 years that I've been practicing, like, to be a young lawyer now, there's so much out there for you to learn. And if you don't like to learn, you're not in the right field. Like, I might not have liked school, like in high school, and I thought it was more like jail. College was cool to get away and have freedom, right? And then I had to apply myself in law school. But I might not have liked the school environment that much, but I enjoy learning every single day.
Yeah.
And most of it's focused on my craft so I can get better. If I were to retire someday, maybe I'll focus on something else that I'm interested in. Yeah. But right now, it's all about the law, and it's all about building businesses and entrepreneurship and growing and making a better experience for our clients.
Michael Saile, thank you so much. Managing partner, trial attorney at Cordisco and Saile. Is there anything that we left out that you'd like to add today?
No, I think we covered a lot of grounds. We could do it again someday, and
we did, yeah.
Where we are, maybe another in 3-4 years, to see where things are then, and could be another interesting episode.
Yeah, heck yeah! I really appreciate your time today. Stay right there. Everybody else, thanks for tuning in wherever you are in the world today. Enjoy yourselves. Cheers.